as a PG podcast, but then Devin just kept on dropping shits and fucks, and
I'm just trying to figure out what's in her mouth.
I just want to see him interview Francesco Accoli.
No, he's a good human being, is what he would say about himself, I'm sure.
Who's hosting this thing?
Take charge, Kevin, would you? Jesus.
First time we ever met those guys. That was the major drunken pub argument.
I think you guys are the worst.
I'm going to have to probably watch some Canucks hockey, unfortunately.
Just making friends left, right, and center, and probably some enemies as well.
Tell him to shut up. He needs to hear that every once in a while.
Off to a good start.
All right. We are live.
It's okay to talk when it goes live.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Hockey Podcast. You can follow us, of course, on Twitter at podcast_hockey. We are live on Facebook, facebook.com, the Hockey Podcast. We are live on YouTube, youtube.com, the Hockey Podcast, where we sit at 100. And Christopher Gibson, who is now a Stanley Cup champion, one of the number 3 goaltender for the Tampa Bay Lightning, the 2021 Stanley Cup champion, Tampa Bay Lightning. So congratulations to him. And of course, you can subscribe to the audio shortly after. We are living in the world of the Tampa Bay Lightning. We're just visiting as the Tampa Bay Lightning last night finished off their 5 games. They won the 5-game series. They defeated the Montreal Canadiens 1-0. The other rookie scored, Ross Colton, but so we'll get into that. Hello, Sean.
Hello, Kevin. How are you today?
I'm good. I am feeling pretty okay for a guy that has been double Pfizered. My arm's a little sore. So if I needed to punch with my left hand, I can't necessarily. It would hurt, but I can do it. I'm not feeling super groggy yet. So far so good. But we've got a long day ahead of us. This is not the only time we are going to be seeing each other today.
No, we've got coming up later on today. We're gonna have Chris and Tyler join us, and we're gonna have go through all 30 teams that have to protect players for the expansion draft and say who we think should be protected.
That's right. As the era of the Seattle Kraken has dawning upon us, the Kraken is rising. Who will be protected? Should the Flames protect Gio? Will the Canucks protect Zach McEwen? How many goaltenders will be protected? Is Connor McDavid going to be protected for the Oilers? Those are the questions we are going to address. I'm spoiler alert. I think Connor McDavid will be protected. I think, but you never know. That's what.
So hold on 1 second here. Am I being like Oilers YYCA on my own podcast?
I didn't see you. Full disclosure, I was looking at something else. I did not see you come in. Okay. So hello, Devin. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Kevin. Good morning, Sean. Yeah,
are you excited of a double duty?
I love this shit, man. I could give me more of these expansion draft lists. I've been looking at it pretty much all morning, trying to figure out exactly what's going to happen. I've seen the list of what everybody has sent in, and I got some beef coming Tyler's way when he jumps on later today, because there's some decisions that he's made for his teams that, man, I don't really agree with. But that's the fun of it, right? So yes. Looking forward to doing that later.
Yes, just to tease this, I think, to me, one of my questions that went through my head is, I don't want to get it. We'll discuss this later, but I wanted to know, like, in my head, did I want the Kraken there were some players that I was like, if I'm the Kraken, I that's a player I want, and that would be an easy pick for them. But I also think that I would want to get something out of that move if you were going to take him. And also, I wanted to. Also, for me, I think the other question is how much money do you want the Kraken to spend off the bat?
Well, they got to get to the floor,
Right.
And within that, you got to take players that are solidified within their career and potentially could help the younger people or the younger players that they're going to be picking progress into become better players. And that's the whole balance between it all, because there are a whole bunch of teams out there that you don't really know which way they're going to go depending on which way they go with other teams. So that's what's so interesting about it.
Yep.
Yeah, they have to draft players selected for the expansion team must have a total cap hit of between 60 and 100% of the salary cap upper limit. So they have to hit at least 60% of the 81.5 upper limit of the cap within that expansion draft. Doesn't matter what other players they've signed or from could be or overseas or whatever, but in the 30 players they pick have to add up to at least 60% of that cap. So if you're Seattle, you're probably wanting to hover right around that and give you some leeway and some room to work with unrestricted free agency coming up as well. So it's going to be very fun, very contentious at times. I think when we get Chris and Tyler on later on today to talk about that.
And let alone you have RFAs on top of that too that you need to sign as well.
Mm-hmm.
That is if they go the RFA route within picking whoever. So yeah, very much looking forward to that.
Yes, that'll be 5:30 Pacific, 6:30 Mountain. We'll start that. But let's get into what we're here for as we this is sort of the wrap up of this year. And Ross Colton was a 4th round pick in the 2000s. The 2016 entry draft. And if you remember that draft, that is the Austin Matthews draft. That is the Olli Juolevi draft. That is the Matthew Tkachuk draft. And I'm precursor. I'm not saying that they should have. I'm not making this statement. How dare no one draft Ross Colton ahead of it? That's. But Ross Colton, as much as everyone was talking about Cole Caulfield and his rookie antics, Ross Colton tied Cole Caulfield for rookie goals in the playoffs and scored the winning goal for the Tampa Bay Lightning as they have won their second consecutive, they're back-to-back champs. So I want to start here, and I'm going to declare this now because I know Twitter is abuzz and everyone wants to talk about cap circumvention, and it's so easy to do when you're $20 million over the cap. Anyone could have done it. Well, no, actually, because only one team actually did it. And they did it within winning 2 cups in 257 days, through a COVID bubble, through a pretty tumultuous time overall, where you had a shortened season. Yes, they only played 56 games, but you still had a lot of stress to deal with. There were COVID concerns. You had one player playing with a broken fibula, Alex Killorn. There's probably going to be a bunch of other injuries that will be revealed throughout all of this. And they kept their structure. They kept their discipline. They kept their composure. As much as people think that the Tampa Bay Lightning are an exciting, fun hockey team to watch, they're not. They're boring. They have found a way to bore you to tears. That was a boring hockey game last night. I'm not going to lie. It was not entertaining. But they have found, beyond cap circumvention, which is the easy thing to point out, the Tampa Bay Lightning have developed a structure and the concept of being a Stanley Cup champion.
Yeah, their defensive play is phenomenal. I got into it a little bit on Twitter last night with some people who don't seem to understand. I don't think they understand how good defensively they are and how drastically that has changed over the past 2 years. Yeah, they've got the big studs and probably one of the arguably the best goaltender in the world in Andrei Vasilevsky, and a Norris Trophy caliber defenseman in Victor Hedman, but they had those guys before. Both Vasilevsky and Hedman won Vezina trophies and Norris trophies before they won cups. This is a full team effort. This is a full team. This is a team that has learned from their mistakes, learned how their system wasn't working, and fixed it, and then fine-tuned it, and I would say damn near perfected it. How many times in these playoffs, and specifically in these Stanley in the final, did their opponents go minutes, half a period without a shot? Like that's how good they are defensively, and how committed they are to that. And I think that's where I saw that from throughout the playoffs, and everyone's just so excited about these high-flying Tampa Bay Lightning, but they aren't very, they've got the top-end skill to play that way if they want it, but they don't. They're much more of a shutdown team, especially when they get that first goal. So it's as good as Vasilevsky was, he didn't really have to steal them a game too many times in these playoffs, and the defense was the star of the show, in my opinion, for Tampa Bay this year.
Yeah, I mean, even if you go down that top four list of defensemen, they had Jan Ruda playing with Victor Hedman, and most of you are probably like, who? What? Who is this guy that's playing with this Norris caliber defenseman? And he played very well, along with my boy Eric Cernak. Also, Sergachev, these guys that are not really as well known, and they're starting to get more known throughout the NHL. They're pulling the rope in the right direction as well. And credit to Ross Colton. He's going to be in the next guy up within that amazing drafting that they have done. Tampa Bay has done within the past 5 years, if not the last decade or so. You have Anthony Cirelli, who's stepping on the scene at 23 years old, who's played really, really well. And he's one of those guys that you don't really see him too much, but when you do, he's making a massive defensive play, and he does have that skill to back it up with. And I think the reason why they played the way that they did was because that's how they knew they were going to win. It didn't have to be high flying, but they can play that way with that top end talent of Braden Point and Kucherov running up and down the ice and being able to capitalize when they needed to. And Braden Point wasn't really that prominent within this Stanley Cup, but he was a good. He had that massive run with goals within the first, I guess, 3 quarters of the playoffs, and he played so damn well. So I think that they overall, John Cooper, he deployed his troops the best way that he could, and obviously he's being rewarded with it.
The Tampa Bay Lightning, forget the last couple of minutes when the Canadians were finally able to swarm a little bit and get a few chances. The Tampa Bay Lightning, other than the 3 shots they allowed in the final minute, but this is Game 7 against the Islanders and Game 5 here. So the two final clinching games. They allowed a total of 37 shots in 2 games, in 2 clinching games. I'm trying to look here because I'm trying to find what the shot total was for that Islander Lightning game, but I don't believe that they allowed 10 shots in the combined 2 periods, period 3, Game 7 of the Islanders, period 3 last night. I don't believe they allowed more than 10 shots in the combined those 2 periods. That was a master's class of defense from the Tampa Bay Lightning. That was New Jersey Devil-esque. Like Jacques Lemaire would have been proud with that defense.
Yeah, exactly, and that's where I'm coming from in terms of what they learned from 2 years ago getting swept by Columbus, because they cruised into the playoffs, didn't have the structure they needed. They learned from that, got some big horses that can help them play that style, and then improved on it this year as well. Because they were good last year defensively, but I wouldn't say they were as good as they are now. And now they're just all world, and it's if you're looking for high flying hockey, that's not what you get with the Tampa Bay Lightning right now.
Yeah. No, we've been gushing about Barclay Goodrow and sorry, forgetting his name, Blake Coleman. Thank you. Jeez. Yeah, we've been gushing about them the entire playoffs here, and they've put out that line with against anybody, and they were able to be offensive threat, but at the same time have the defensive structure within shutting down those units for Montreal that were giving, would potentially give them threat to score. So overall, they've definitely fine-tuned this year, at least. They fine-tuned the best way to play, and they've obviously did it last year. So a repeat wasn't too far out of reach within obviously the cap circumvention with Nikita Kucherov last year with Stamkos. So overall, I don't know if they'll be able to do again. They definitely have to make some moves in the offseason to offload some salary to make themselves cap compliant going into the season. And I'm really interested to see how Julien BriseBois is gonna do that this year, and maybe they will have a talk with Ron Francis and the Seattle Kraken to make sure that, or have a deal within that expansion draft that we're gonna be talking about tonight, to try and offload some salary. And Sean mentioned in earlier podcast that Tyler Johnson could be on his way up there, depending on what conversations they are having. So overall, it's congrats to the Stanley Cup champs of last year and this year. They as much as some of us hate to say it, they did deserve it. They were within the rules of the NHL, and I'm curious to see exactly how they do in the offseason.
Yeah, I'm not upset with the Lightning for exploiting a loophole. I'm upset with the NHL for allowing them to do that. The people talk about, well, they were able to build a team that was able to not be without Kucherov for the whole season. Yeah, part of that was because they were able to bring in injured players to help create more cap space for them, so they could have a deeper team and keep players. The whole point of the cap is to allow for more parity, so you don't have teams keeping their players and just building dynasties. That's the whole point of the cap. And but they deserve all the credit for using that loophole. And if the NHL finally decides to close it, then they're going to be in tough next season to try and keep this team together. They're currently, I think, just over $5 million over the cap right now, let alone with all the some key players they need to resign, including Barclay Goodrow and Blake Coleman, let alone some younger players that maybe need to come up and step into those roles. Ross Colton is one of them. Like he's a rookie, but he's also needs a new contract this summer, and he could be someone that steps up into that third line role next year, as well. So I think it's going to be fun to watch to see what they do going forwards with this roster, because as you said, they do need to offload some salary. to be able to be cap compliant, let alone to be able to try and put together keep the majority of this team together and be able to continue on and see if they can three-peat next year. So, but yeah, they deserve all the credit to be able to put this team together and get them to buy into playing very strict defensive hockey.
Right now, they only have 5 defense that are under salary for next year, and they need a backup goaltender as well on top of that. With also, obviously, like you said, those key pieces up front, like Ross Colton. And I don't know how they're going to do it. I really don't. They got to have some sort of witchcraft, wizardry by Brisebois in the offseason. And I think we were expecting this last year in the offseason to try and figure out how they're going to get under the cap. But this year, it's coming to a head, and yeah, it's going to be fun.
Well, last year they were able to find those loopholes to keep the players in town. Are they going to be able to find players that can be long-term injury reserve from day one to be able to do that, to be able to keep players? That's a big question. If not, then there will be some major changes and some, I wouldn't say like super major surgery on this roster, but it's going to be different.
Well, and a big part of that, though, was Kucherov, right? And the fact that he was injured and that he was a key piece within that and a massive cap hit. And so it was a lot easier to exploit the loopholes within that cap. So yeah. I don't see them doing that this year. Unless all of a sudden Killorn, his broken tibia is a lot worse, or something else happened. That's going to be, unfortunate for him to miss the entire season. Yeah, I just don't see it happening. I think that they do have to have not massive surgery, but definitely some sort.
Well, from what I was hearing last night, this sounds like a team that is preparing to at least go through some, like, they're not planning to be together again. That was sort of the conversation that was left. They knew that this was kind of sort of the last hurrah. And they knew that there would be some major changes going forward. Now, I don't think that that's a point. Like, to me, that doesn't mean that Tampa Bay is not going to be dangerous next year, because you still have Point, you still have Kucherov. We'll get to him in a second. You still have Vasilevsky, well deserving for the Conn Smythe, by the way. You have Victor Hedman, who still is the best defenseman in the game. You have Ryan McDonough, I think, who would be a number one pairing defenseman on most teams in the league. You've got, I think one of the questions that I'm curious about would be Steven Stamkos. I wonder, I don't know if I'm not, I wonder if he considers retirement at least. He's 31. It's not super old to retire, but he's been through a lot. I don't see him necessarily, if they go to the Olympics, I don't see him on that roster. I mean, maybe, but I highly doubt it. He had the opportunity. I mean, the rumors, the reports were that Toronto offered him way more money than Tampa did, and he stayed. So it's not striking me that he will want to go anywhere else. I wonder if he considers retirement. He's
not throwing away $20 million. That's what's left on his contract.
Well,
I'll put that out there.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, unless you buy him out, or unless you. That might be I do wonder what his future holds. That's the one guy I do wonder about.
Well, to date, he's earned $92 million, and $20 million. Yeah, that's a bunch of money for sure. But it really depends on his health and what he really, what life after hockey is going to look like. Whether or not he's going to go off into the sunset, or if he's going to play out these last 2 years. Or 3 years, sorry, at 8.5. So I can see where you're coming from, Kev. There's got to be a lot of a lot of conversations between upper management and him in the offseason if they're planning on doing that. I know that they were talking about exposing him within the draft, and that will he want to not have that clause in place, his no movement clause, to have him exposed, but he turned that down. To me, that sounds like a player that still wants to be there, still wants to play and be around the boys in the locker room, because there's a lot of people who do retire and retire early. They say that within the first year they have a bunch of mental issues within it, because their rhythm is off. Hockey players are just want to be in the dressing room around the team. And be a part of an organization. So I don't see that happening. But once again, you never know what future, what's going to happen within Steven Stamkos' future.
Go ahead, Sean.
I understand the thought, what you're thinking there, Kev, but I don't think that this Stamkos is going to be part of any moves that are going to be changing things up with Tampa Bay. I think you're looking at, like I said, a Tyler Johnson or even an Andre Palat. Tyler Johnson or Andre Palat going over to Seattle,
or Alex Killorn.
That'd be another guy if I'd want to talk.
Even a Yanni Gord, I think, would be all of them are options here. That are going to move, and then they're still going to have to find a way to move someone, make a sort of salary dump / hockey trade, something where you're getting back some younger players, but you're giving up the better player to create some more cap space for yourself as well. So I think that's probably what we're looking at, not something as earth shattering as the captain of back-to-back Stanley Cup champions with 3 years left on his deal retiring, or deciding that he's willing to move. I think they asked him last year because they were looking at what they could do to try and relieve their cap crunch. And they did go up and ask him, "Are you willing to be traded?" And he said no. And I don't think that's going to change again, because I think he likes it down to Tampa. He looks, even with the major surgery that's going to be coming with this roster to keep it cap compliant, they're still going to be a very good team. When you've got a Norris Trophy winner, when you've got a Vezina Trophy winner, when you've got an Art Ross winner on your team, you've got the top end talent to be able to do it. It doesn't matter what happens with this team this offseason. I still think they're going to be a very strong team, and a contender next year. So I don't think Steven Stamkos is going to want out, and he could put his name in the history books as a captain of a three-peat team next year if they can figure out how to build this team up again.
I was just going to say if there's a way to hide his salary, and I mean, maybe Brisebois is smarter than me, so maybe there is, and I'm not aware of it. But that was the one guy that I'm wondering about where that really would be. That's interesting to me, because I think Tyler Johnson. I agree with you. I think Tyler Johnson is not a Tampa Bay Lightning next year. And then you're going to have to give up a Gord or a Killorn. Matthew Joseph, if I'm the Kraken, that's a guy I'm absolutely looking at. You do need to sign Blake Goldman. I think if you're the Lightning, you want to sign Coleman and Goodrow if you can. But maybe Coleman and Goodrow go to free agency, but maybe they take a hometown discount as well. That's another interesting thing. You wonder also about Patrick Maroon, the Maroonist, 3 straight Stanley Cup raisings here. Does he ride off into the sunset? Does he go to another team?
Well, he's got one more year left on his contract.
Oh, that's true. Okay, so he got $900,000. So we could see the Maroonist continue in Tampa Bay. Sorry, I forget that I'm looking at 21-22 there, but they need a backup goaltender. It's going to be, and then they'll probably have to shore up that defense with David Savard and former Canuck Cup champion Luke Schenn.
Former Leaf as well.
Former Leaf, yes. Leaf draft pick, actually.
Yep.
High-end Leaf draft pick, yes.
Oh, Berkey was so high on him. Look how good he's done. Hey. Yeah, I mean, I think once again, I don't see Coleman or Gaudreau come back. Yeah, it's a nice place to live, but the amount of money that's going to be offered to them in free agency is going to be huge, and they can live their lifestyle after they're done hockey. Easily they'll probably get a 3-year deal, or maybe even a 4-year deal at $3 to $4 million, and that's a lot of money, especially for how little they've made so far within their career.
I totally expect Ken Holland to be right in on Blake Coleman and to be putting a decent sized contract in front of him, because he'd be a great add to their top 6.
Mm-hmm. And that's someone that they need, that type of player. To go retrieve the puck and still have the skill to play with the high-end players like a McDavid or Draisaitl.
Yeah, it's a possibility. I could see that. I mean, yeah, I think a lot of teams. I think the Leafs. I wouldn't be surprised if the Leafs are in on Coleman either. Actually,
the Leafs are in on everybody. Supposedly, they're in on Taylor Hall, and I'm thinking to myself, why? Like it's such a rumor mill bullshit that I'm sick and tired of hearing. Being a fan of the team, it's just like, yeah, we're in on everybody. No shit.
No, but hear me out on. I do think Blake Coleman is one of those. Is the type of player that I think, I think like the Oilers, the Leafs need that type of player as well. That sort of what he brings, I think would not hurt the Maple Leafs. Either though. So I mean, if you were to ask me who am I giving money to, Blake Coleman or Taylor Hall, if I'm the Leafs, I would take more of a run at Blake Coleman, because you have the skill. That's not at issue here. It's more that gritty sort of sandpaper greasy type of thing. I wouldn't be surprised if Winnipeg looks at Blake Coleman either. I think that might be another one too. I know that they're pretty deep at forward, but I think coming off of this playoff, they probably are thinking they could use a little bit of sandpaper as well.
For sure, and especially with Toronto. Sorry, Sean, I'm going to talk about Toronto because they're my team.
I was going there too.
Yeah. That you are losing to Zach Hyman potentially. You do need to fill that role with whoever you can, whether or not that's going to be Nick Foligno. I don't know if that's the right fit for Toronto, but you do need a player like that, like a Gaudreau, like a Coleman, like Hyman and Foligno, and maybe a younger version of Foligno would be beneficial, and having that skill on top of that too. Being able to, like I said, to play. But yeah, Kev, you made a good point that Winnipeg does need a player like that as well.
Well, and that you went where I was going there, Dev. Like they've got, do Toronto need a player like Blake Coleman? Yeah, but they also already have an in-house option there in Zach Hyman, I think they're comparable players. They're big, they're puck retrievers. The only difference is Hyman's has more points, but he's also been given better line mates over the past few years to play with. His two most often line mates are Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews, while Blake Coleman's been playing with Yanni Gordon and Blake Goodrow. And nothing against Gordon Goodrow, but there's a big discrepancy in skill there between those two pairings. And yeah, if people are too focused in on just the production of Zach Hyman as opposed to Blake Coleman, and he gets priced out, then Toronto going in and getting maybe a slightly cheaper version and maybe better than Zach Hyman and Blake Coleman would be very, very shrewd.
Yeah, and I don't think if Zach Hyman's going to stay, he's going to stay on a team-friendly deal. But I don't think that's the route he's going to go. I think he's going to test free agency, and I hope Dubas doesn't pull a Jim Benning and wait for your big fish that you're going after to to catch those guys, and then you let a Tyler Toffoli slip through your fingers. It's going to be. Yeah. I hate saying this, but it's going to be interesting to see exactly what's going to happen within the offseason for the Maple Leafs, let alone Winnipeg or even Vancouver. I think Vancouver might be a bit more active than I think most people think.
Before just one more thing with Tampa, and I think we have to talk about Nikita Kucherov.
Number one bullshit. As Haley Selvan tweeted, can we get that T-shirt done like right now?
Let's see if we can. I have it. Let's see if we can play this. Here, give me a quick moment. I'm gonna move that there. There we go. Like that. Okay. I won't go full screen, so we shouldn't face the copywriters here, but I will just play a little bit of this. And wait, hang on.
He took both jobs. And he took MVP, and I was keep telling him he's MVP. He's the guy that he's the best. He was on his head today, and he kept us in the game. And another shout out by him, remarkable. Can't even.
Here, let's play this from the beginning.
You're the best player, and then they gave it to whatever the guy in Vegas, the Vezina. Last year they gave Vezina to somebody else. Number one bullshit. He took MVP, and I was keep telling him he's MVP. He's the guy that he's the best.
Love it.
I have to say, like, all these people on Twitter, you want your hockey players to have some personality. So Nikita Kucherov shows you some personality. He's probably had a couple of 3 or 4 brewskis before he came to the press box, the press conference there. He's the villain. He's the new villain.
You got that quote, and then you got the one talking about how he didn't want to go back to Montreal, and Montreal, their final was last round, and Montreal fans acted like they won the cup after winning one game. And is it a jerk thing to say, a shit thing to say? Yes. But guess what? You're right, Kevin. He's the villain. Going into the first game in Montreal next year, guess what? They're division rivals next year. They're gonna play. Was it 8 times a season? Like 7 or 8 times a season for the next couple of years.
Yeah,
with Kucherov there for the next foreseeable future. With Kucherov there, they're gonna boo him out of the. They're gonna try and boo him out of the Bell Center every time he touches the puck, and it's gonna be great.
Yeah,
that's what we want. We want to see. We want to see that. We want to see villains and heroes and black hats and white hats with this, and that's the personality that we want to see, because it helps sell the game. It helps create narratives that you can use to tell stories. We can analyze to no end these games and what they do and all that, but sports when it's at its best, have stories, have narratives, have good guys, have bad guys and then if you and you get invested in it because of that. That's how you sell the sport. It's not necessarily. You're going to have people who are going to be interested in the stats and the hyper analysis of everything, but for the most part, the average fan, the general public, are going to gravitate more towards the stories, the narratives, the personalities of the players. We want players to show that personality. If I was a Canadiens fan or a Canadiens player, I'd be yelling fuck him and tell him to go shove it up his ass and everything. But this is great entertainment.
Yeah. I like how you're trying to keep it kind of PG, and then you said, "Fuck it, let's go the entire way." But he has the right to do this. Like, he's the right to shit talk because he is a double champ. The type of player that he is too. He's not just a fourth liner. He's arguably he is right up there with Connor McDavid within this league for goal scoring. He really is. He is unbelievable at what he does. He can pretty much score at will when he wants to. And I love it. You had Tortorella, I think it was last year, talking about that, how there's a lack of hatred within this game now. And that's the thing. Those are the type of things that we want to see, we want to hear. So that when you do go back to the Bell Center, that you do hear those boos, that you have that extra little pep in your step when you go and play those. If you're a Montreal Canadian, when you go play them, that you'll have that resonating in the back of your head, and you might give them an extra shot here and there because of it. And being a fan and watching that, if you are a fan of Tampa Bay or Montreal next year, that's a for sure game you want to circle on the calendar. It's gonna be fun.
Okay, I just have to share this. I was looking up Kucherov's awards, and the internet is undefeated. 2021 award, Nikita Kucherov is Montreal Canadiens' daddy.
Oh, oh,
jeez. That's so good. Oh
my God. Love it.
Sorry, Joel, by the way.
We haven't even talked about the Montreal Canadiens.
We're going to get there now.
Okay.
But before I do that, I think it's get back to the Braden Point and like just disconnect. So the Braden Point top 10 conversation, because I had a bit of a debate with Scott Wheeler about this. I still think Braden Point is a top 10 player. I'm saying bottom half of that. But I don't know where I put Kucherov. I think that, I'm open to hearing him in a top 5 in a lot of ways. Cause in terms of offense, for sure. But I just feel like Point drives the play a little bit more, but Kucherov is a superstar in this league. Like there's no question about it.
Well, the reason I was looking up his awards is I was like, okay, I know he won the Art Ross, but in 2018-19, he won the Art Ross, the Ted Lindsay, and the Hart. Like he's two seasons removed from that, and then the last 2 seasons he's been probably the runner-up to the Conn Smythe both years.
Yeah.
And he had and he's won 2 cups. Like it's really, really, yeah. You if you're a Habs fan, you're just cursing, but you know that he's backed it up. Like he's with all those awards and 2 cups, he's allowed to say that. That's right up there with Patrick Was. I can't hear Jeremy because I've got my 2 cup rings stuck in my ears.
Oh, can Kucherov please say that when he gets into Montreal? That would be so. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. I've got 2 cups in my ring.
Yep.
2 cups. What here?
I would expect him to say it. You're gonna be waiting for that soundbite next year when they play.
In terms of the Canadiens, this is it's a fascinating situation because you didn't have the greatest regular season. You got on a roll in the playoffs. It becomes a matter of how you rate where your team is at, because you could either overrate this team and say, yeah, we went on this run and you don't make significant changes, or because you feel kind of everything is okay. And I would remind everybody that the Edmonton Oilers of 2018 is a learning curve, a learning opportunity for a number of teams there. Or you could underrate this team in terms of, like, you look at where they were in the playoffs and the regular season and not think that they're as good. To me, I think the problem with the Canadiens this entire series is they could only whatever offense that they could get, and it wasn't a lot. It was from the Suzuki, Caulfield, and whoever was playing on that left side, whether it be Anderson or Toffoli. They couldn't find any other offense. And that is something I think that they are going to have to address next year.
Like it came down to just them not having a outside of Suzuki, they didn't really have a center that you could match up with Tampa's center depth. You like Deneau was good. He was able to shut down that top line, but they didn't have a third center like Tampa had with Yanni Gourde to be able, and a third line that could be able to step up and provide offense. Because in this series, it wasn't necessarily the top players on Tampa, the Kucherovs, the Points, that were leading the way. It was the Blake Colemans, it was the Barclay Goodrows, it was that third line that was leading the way offensively for a lot of the time for Tampa. And I think that's a big thing there. And they couldn't break through. I think their speed was an issue. I don't think they had the speed to break through the Tampa's defense.
I don't know. Yeah, the depth wasn't there, and you have a young guy in Jake Evans trying to find his way within coming off concussion. I think that was a massive loss for Montreal, and he did come back, and I thought he played pretty damn well. I thought that he did do a decent job keeping up with that line, but I think experience just overruled what Jake Evans could provide within a shutdown role and within being a third line center. I don't know if I really hope for chaos sake that they think that they're going to be contending every single year, because I don't really know if this team will be able to get back to the playoffs next year within that division. I think it's just too tightly contested. And if I'm Marc Bergevin, I'm going to be very, very cautious about what I do with this lineup, who I bring back, and who do you protect only 3 defensemen within this draft or within this expansion draft, or do you protect all of that massive big 4 that they have back there with Edmondson, Weber, Petrie, and Sherratt. And Sherratt only has 1 year left, and he's 30 years old. So, man, I don't know. I personally think that Bergevin will go all in again, knowing the way that he works, and maybe potentially trying to save his job. And from a not being a Canadiens fan, taking a step back and looking at it, it's gonna be fun to watch, I think, and see exactly what he does within this lineup. Because I don't think with this group they have enough skill to rely on the chemistry that they have had within this playoffs, and they just ran out of steam.
Last night, according to Eric Engels, Deschamps said Weber had a thumb injury, Petrie's fingers, Toffoli a groin injury, Gallagher with a groin injury, and more. A lot of guys bang up. They bled, they fought, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. I don't, to be fair, I don't have the Montreal Canadiens, so I can't speak, but I think that is part of the fascination with the Canadiens, is what you do on the back end in terms of your protection. You have some pretty interesting questions there. You're not bringing back Thomas Tatar. I think that's a foregone conclusion. Eric Stahl, that's an interesting question if you're bringing him back. I think the Canadiens would like to bring back Corey Perry, but I also think that a number of teams are going to see I think that might be a late free agency signing again, near closer to the regular season. I wouldn't be surprised if the Calgary Flames are in on Corey Perry. That would be one team that I would think would make a run. They made a run last year. Wouldn't be surprised. You've got Paul Byron is an interesting situation as well. You've got Kotkaniemi that you've got an RFA. We've talked about Philip. We've talked about that situation. They do need to. That forward group needs some work for sure. They definitely need a left-hand shot. I do wonder out loud a little bit about Brendan Gallagher's future. I think he's back next year, but I also think that the Canadiens may listen to some offers for him. I don't know. I think the Canadiens are in a very fascinating position.
Didn't Gallagher just sign a new deal?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
6.5.
Yeah, I don't think that he's he'll be they'll be looking to they just signed it. He's got a modified no trade clause and a no movement clause. I really doubt that they'll be shopping him. He is the heart and soul of that team. I think that unfortunately, I think that contract's not going to age well just because of the way he plays. But
there's another contract that's not going to age well on that team, by the way, and it's not Josh Anderson.
Carey Price, Shea Weber,
Tyler Toffoli. I don't think that contract is going to age very well. I think
he had an absolutely amazing season. Deserves all the credit in the world for the season that he had. Sorry for cutting you off there, Kev. But I agree with you. I think in the last 2 years of that deal, especially now that he's had another groin injury. If you remember last year in the bubble, he had a lower body injury. I can't remember if it was groin or hip or abdominal or something like that. There is something around there, though, I believe, is where it was a lower body. I don't think he's going to have the speed in a year or two. But I think the way I look at it is I think they've got one more year left with in a window to try and do something. And if they can find a way if Suzuki can take the next step, if Kotkaniemi can take the next step, they can keep Danault, and they've got some younger players coming up. What's nice for them is a lot of their key players are exempt from the draft, with Caulfield and Suzuki, Romanoff as well. I expect that's someone to watch next year with Montreal. Is what type of step does Romanoff take next year? Because I think he's definitely got one or two more levels to go, and he was already pretty solid, a pretty solid defenseman this season. So they still have some young players coming up that have the ability to help refresh from within. But yeah, they definitely need to look at how they've built this roster and try and figure out what they need. And I think what they need is a little more speed on the wings. And I think that they're going to try and look at that. But because you saw one of the players that was able to have a lot of success, and even if he didn't, he got 2 goals in Game 4, and was. He was on for the latter half of this series, and he was a menace to Tampa, and that was Josh Anderson. And if they can find another speedy winger, that could help them next year, not regress.
And everybody on the ice we just talked about, but what is this coaching staff going to look like? Ducharme is coming. He's still the interim head coach. You had Luke Richardson step in and did a pretty damn good job. I'm kind of curious that Patrick Waugh was at the Bell Center, and he's looking. There's rumors that he's looking for another job within the NHL, being a head coach somewhere. And what a landing spot that would be for Montreal Canadiens fans, getting a legend like that coming in. So I think it also has to do with that and how that coaching staff will deploy and have their strategies within the game. And that's going to be a big question mark going into the offseason, and what Bergevin's going to do with that coaching staff.
I think they stick with it. But I also think that I think what they may also need, and this is no disrespect to, I think Luke Richardson was great. I think Alex Burrows, I think it sounds like he did a really fine job there. But they probably will need to add a veteran assistant coach there. I think that there was some times during the season from some of the things I was listening on Canadians radio that it just felt like Ducharme's inexperience being a head coach was a bit of a hindrance. So they may want to bring in that's why I'm suggesting that. But I think they bring everybody back at least to start the year. But if there's a place that there's a really easy hook or tough hook, it doesn't matter that you went to the Stanley Cup Finals in Montreal. You didn't win the Stanley Cup. And it's the one of the hottest seats to coach in Montreal.
I think they stick with what they have, but as we saw this even this past year that I don't think the leash is going to be very long. I think it's especially with Patrick Waugh waiting in the wings, because I think he is literally waiting in the wings to had they not gone on this run, I think he would have been the next coach of the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, well, the thing with Ducharme is that he didn't like one of the biggest questions was why isn't he playing Romanov? Why isn't he playing Tatar? It doesn't make much sense to me in that aspect. And yes, you're going to have coaches with their different feelings towards players and might have a bit of favoritism for the players that they like, depending on the type of style they want to coach. And I think it's you need to look at that. And if I'm Bergevin, I want to have a conversation with Ducharme if he's going to bring him back, what he thinks of Romanov, because that having him sit in the press box as much as he did this year, I don't think that was beneficial for his development unless they see something mentally hindering him within his development. So if you really want to look at your players and how he is deploying them, then I don't know. It does make me question whether or not he does bring back Ducharme.
Well, the other one too is Kotkaniemi, and I say that on both ends, right? I say that from the Ducharme perspective. Why didn't you play him? And I also say that from what is Kotkaniemi? What does he need to work on? This is a fourth pick in the draft player. This is the Canadiens' only Juolevi, if you prefer. Now, I'm not in the sense of a guy that you have a bit of high expectations for because he's a high pick. But ultimately, he hasn't necessarily met them. And I mean, nobody brings this up too much, but the next pick after that was Brady Tkachuk.
Oh.
So, I mean, as much as, Canuck fans rub it on betting that it's Matthew Tkachuk after Olli Juolevi, it was Brady Tkachuk after Jesperi Kotkaniemi. So, that to me, that I want to know on both ends what's going on there. That would be one of my questions.
Yeah, he was the third pick in that draft, actually.
Yeah. Sorry, third. Brady was fourth, right?
Brady was fourth, and who else was drafted in that draft was Quinton Hughes. Like it was, I remember that because it was just like you had Quinton Hughes dropping to the Canucks, and I was just like, how is this happening?
Yeah,
but he's shown so many flashes of what he could be. He's got the ability to be like a 2. Like that's the problem is he was drafted way too high. But he's a center. He can be a 2. I think a 2 or a very good 3C in this league, and that's very, very valuable. Whether or not he'll get there in Montreal is a big question, just because of you look at where he was drafted and the expectations. You've got Brady Tkachuk immediately drafted behind him, Quinn Hughes, Oliver Wahlstrom, Noah Dobson, Joel Farabee, all drafted in that first round, and they're all, I would say, if not ahead of him, debatable. And
Ty Smith being a part of that as well.
Yeah,
Ty Smith as well.
Yeah.
That first round's got some really good players that I think we'll look back at that and wonder what could have been for Montreal had they not gotten so focused in on a center prospect, because that was there as well, because that was also Arizona focusing zeroing in on Barrett Hayton as well. But he's still young and he still has a lot to grow. He may have the skills. I think he does have the physical skills. It's the mental side of the game that I think he needs to work on, and that usually doesn't come until the mid-20s for players. And he's only 21, so he's still got 2-3 years before I think you're really going to see what he really is in this league.
Yeah.
And so if Montreal's smart, they're going to be patient with him, because I see still a very useful player for them, but someone can come with an offer and it'd be hard to say no to. I don't think he's definitely not untouchable in my opinion.
No.
He's not. And Romanov was that second round pick for the Canadiens that year as well in 2018. So those guys are still young and they will develop, and I think that they will be good NHLers. I think Romanov probably has a bit more of an upside, and that's just my gut feeling. But yeah, once again, if I'm Bergevin, I'm asking those questions of your new potential head coach and where you see that development with those two players.
Yeah. I like your comparison the last time we were together, Devin, about Sam Bennett, because I do feel that's a good comparison. If I'm the Kotkaniemi and Bennett is a pretty good comparison in my mind there. That 2018 draft overall is going to be interesting. But I mean, again, and the other question is, just quickly before we move on here, is what do you do with that defense with this expansion draft? I have a hunch that whoever has the Montreal Canadiens is going to make a controversial decision that we will be debating later. That I think it's fair to say that.
You're right. You're right. I got him. And making that decision, I looked at who Montreal has and the fact that the future up front is young and exempt from this, and there will be a debate on that for sure. And I knew there was going to be one, but I think based off of how they've built this team and how much they valued having those four horsemen, building upon the tridents last in the bubble and creating the four horsemen, I think they're going to value them very much and go and look at that way.
Yeah.
Not to mention they've got so many UFAs going into this, so there's only so much you can do in terms of players to protect up front.
Yeah. Excuse me. By the way, buyout season is upon us as well, so we would not be surprised if we hear some news within the next few days of some buyouts of a number of players as well. So keep that.
Buyouts start tomorrow, I believe.
Yeah.
24 hours after the Stanley Cup is awarded.
Yeah. We may have one as we are talking tonight. But anyway, let's quickly move on. The one topic I wanted to talk about is Vladimir Teresenko, according to The Athletic, has requested a trade. And I'm just going to pull this up here. Give me a quick moment here. Basically, I'm going to find this, but it basically, according to The Athletic, the issue is the request has to do with how the Blues have treated his injury the last couple of years. That's partially why he wants out. Okay, I know we did a clip on this a few months ago because I started to see some of the Flames Twitter voices start making this claim that the Flames should bring in Vladimir Teresenko. So I'm going to say this again. The Flames should not be touching Vladimir Teresenko. Not with the broom that I have beside me in the kitchen. Not with the 3 brooms I have beside me in the kitchen. Not with a 30-foot hockey stick. Not with anything. This is not a guy. He's just not. This is not the year to take a gamble if you're the Flames on a guy that may get back to his old offensive glory. It's possible that Tarasenko can come back and have offensive glory somewhere else. I'm not disputing that, but I just don't think the Flames should be in on this. And this is not a guy, like, you look where this team is at. They have Tarasenko's. Really. They have a number of guys that can do what Tarasenko can do and has the potential to be healthy. You're just giving up capital that you don't need to give up for a guy that is a gamble. And I just don't see any reason, salary or otherwise, that you need to be involved with Vladimir Teresenko. Graham and the Oilers YYC podcast, if you want Vladimir Teresenko on your team, please feel free. Enjoy him with Duncan Keith, You can have them go down White Avenue and wave hi to the fans in Edmonton. But I'm sorry, the Flames should not be involved in Vladimir Teresenko.
No, man, I agree 100% with that statement. First of all, why do you have 3 brooms? That's my question. You said you have 3 brooms in your kitchen. That, out of all of that, that is the thing that like shocks me within this. But anyways, moving on. Calgary does not have a Vladimir Teresenko. I disagree with you on that. The last person that they've had that is automatic on a power play to score and be a pure sniper was Joe McGinley. That's the last person that they've had within this organization that has boom.
Okay. Let me reword that. I think that they have the players that can produce what in a way that what I think you will get out of Vladimir Teresenko.
Okay, so then the before he got injured, 2017-18, he got 33 goals and 66 points. Very similar in the year after, 18-19, 33 goals and 68 points. He's not going to be back to that glory. I don't think so. He had surgery on his shoulder. It's super hard to come back from that to and especially at his age. The way that the game is progressing as well, I don't see it happening. I think that you will get a 20-goal scorer within him, but at that cap hit of what is he at?
7.5.
7.5 for the next 2 years. Kev, the assets that St. Louis is going to be looking for to get him off of their hands is too big and too steep of a hill to climb, and it's not worth it. It just doesn't make sense to me if Tree Living does it, and I don't think he does. I think he's smarter than that, but he has proved me wrong before.
Like, I think Mangiapane can get you 25 goals. I'm not saying he's the natural goal-scoring talent that Tarasenko could be, but Mangiapane can get you 25.
I'd rather have that gamble than bringing in that guy.
Yep.
Like we're also live we're in a world where Victor Arvidsson got a second and a third. I don't think the asking price for Tarasenko is going to be sky high, and with being a flat cap and with his cap being 7.5, and let alone the real money for this upcoming season is 9.5. I don't think the actual whatever he's traded for will not be astronomical, and I think if Brad Treliving will be in on this, he will, and if there is a way to get him in with minimal major assets going the other way and potentially some cap retention, I think that I disagree with you, Kevin, in that it is something that they should be looking at. I think they have to look at it. They look at how disappointed this season was, and if they have to look at multiple things here, though. They also have to look at, is he going to be healthy? Can he get, even if it's not to the 30-40 goal pace that he was at in his prime, can he push for 30 goals? And if they feel that they can and they can get the right price for the trade, it's something to look into. It's not something that's like, oh no, we don't want him. I think you have to look into it. That's same with the Canucks. Like, I know they need to fix their blue line, but with Podkolzin coming in, having a veteran Russian player to come in and help him along, they can find the right deal. I think it is something to look into. It's not just but if it is literally. If St. Louis is looking for the moon and the stars and aren't willing to retain, then you walk away real quick.
I just think there's other players out there that I think are a better fit. Tarasenko is another left shot. They have enough left shots on this team. I do think they need to look at the right shot side of this a bit more, and I do think there's other pieces out there that I think are better in terms of giving up assets for than Vladimir Teresenko. I just, especially at that cap hit. And I not even if it's at a 50% retain, I'm not sure if I'm comfortable doing it because I need to know about that injury.
You definitely do. Listen, anytime that I say that you shouldn't be looking at a player, yes, it's all about the price, but I think the price is just going to be too damn high.
Yeah, that's my thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like the projected cap space for the Flames is $14.5 million, and it like if they're retaining salary for Tarasenko, they're going to be asking for more assets, whether that's picks, whether that's prospects, and right now the picks and prospect, or at least the prospect pool within Calgary, isn't that deep. So to me, I don't think it's quite the right price for what I'm thinking that they're going to be asking.
Let alone whether or not Tarasenko will waive his no trade clause to go to the Flames.
What is that? What is his clause?
It's just a full no trade clause.
Oh, you can just go. Damn.
Yeah, all I see is a full no trade clause, no modifications on 10-team list or 6-team list or 15-team list. It's just full no trade clause.
And that's going to handcuff the Blues because I mean, it's not out of the possibility that Tarasenko says that there's one or two teams and that's it. Because other players have done it. So, and I mean, Ryan Kessler did it as an example, right? So, I mean, we've had other players do it. So it wouldn't surprise me if that happens. It's just to me, it's not worth the risk to get. Like, I know that we admire Brad Treliving for trying to be in on everything. And yes, I think Treliving will ask about Tarasenko, but I ultimately think that this is one that I think, unless it's nothing or close to nothing, it's one that you walk away from. I mean, the other thing that you're going to have to think of, and just to tease, I mean, the question will be, is if you're not protecting Giordano, you're probably hoping you may have to make a deal with the Kraken to keep Giordano if that's what you decide. So there's another asset that you have already lost. You are already possibly down an asset going into this already. So,
well, within that though, that goes to salary too. If they do take Giordano, the salary is gone, $6 million, boom, out of our hair, and that's where, if that does happen, okay, well, what does that back end look like? Are you looking at, are we a Vladimir Teresenko away from getting to the Cup final or even just the playoffs, for God's sakes? No, we're not.
No.
And I say we as in the Flames, and they definitely aren't close to that. Now another team might think that they are and might go closer to Vladimir Teresenko, like a Dallas Stars. I think that Dallas would be a good landing spot for him because they need scoring like very, very badly. Who knows exactly what offers are going to be out there, but I think that they'll find better offers. St. Louis will find better offers for Vladimir Teresenko than what Calgary is willing to give up. And to Brad Treliving's point, if you're not talking to the teams that have those type of players, you're not doing your job properly. And then you have to be in on everything. It doesn't mean that you're that it's close.
Yeah.
But having that phone call is something that you need to do if you're a GM.
Yeah, no, of course. You call, you ask. Even if you're betting, you call, you ask. But I think ultimately there's, to me, just from what I'm seeing, it's not something that I would be jumping in on.
No.
And a legitimate question is if Tarasenko's, if he's willing to waive his no move, if he's requested a trade, do the Blues protect him?
Man, that's a good point.
That's tough because I think we'll get into St. Louis this evening for sure. I'll say that. But there's young players that I think they're going to want to keep, and with Tarasenko, that could help them with cap wise, but then you're also potentially losing a top 6 forward for nothing. So that's a tough question. That is a very tough question.
Managing assets, in my mind, you definitely consider it because you do have a bunch of young, good, talented forwards on that team that you did it without Tarasenko this year for the majority of it, and not like he came back with vengeance and came back the same Tarasenko that he was. Yeah, Kev, that's a good question, man.
Is there anything else we need to talk about?
Well, we've got some breaking news, actually.
Breaking news.
Great splitter.
The Toronto Maple Leafs have re-signed Travis Dermott to a 2-year contract extension, $1.5 million cap hit.
Smart.
Well, I believe that they needed to get someone signed to quote unquote to meet exposure requirements for the expansion draft. And this would do it. If they didn't, it's still someone that they're probably going to expose to the expansion draft, and that's a decent deal for Travis Dermott, and it won't hamper if Seattle wants him either.
Oh God, no! They need salary, if anything. With the list that I have going on with the expansion draft, I think it's good on Dubas. That's a good pay grade bump for Travis Dermott, and I think that he will. I think he'll take a couple steps within this next year or two to become a really good, formidable defenseman, puck mover, good skater. His defensive zone play is questionable, but he's still young and he can still learn from that.
Yeah, he's 24, and as we said, I think it takes a little while longer to figure out that mental side and what you can and can't get away with at the NHL level. And yes, that is something that allows them to now potentially protect for defense and have someone to expose in the expansion draft in a couple of weeks now.
Yep.
They did not have a fifth defenseman under contract that would have met that was eligible for the expansion draft. So that this helps them meet that as well as if Seattle doesn't pick them, they've got a good depth defenseman for them going for the next couple of years.
Yeah, good signing, I think, for the Leafs, for sure. Let's leave it there. As I said, we got to have a little bit of a rest because we're back in 7 hours to do this expansion draft. We've got a lot to talk about. How do we follow everyone?
I am BeardyConnect03 on Twitter.
You can follow me on Twitter, GordHow09.
Tyler's TNOBLE, Chris is Schneid's SCHNEIDZ. I am KEVOLE, podcast_hockey, Facebook.com, The Hockey Podcast, YouTube.com, The Hockey Podcast. Subscribe to wherever you get your audio. Come join us again tonight, 5:30 Pacific, 6:30 Mountain. Who do we protect? That is the question. Thanks, everyone, and we will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.